Good evening, dear listeners, and a very warm welcome to you all. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, maybe cozied up in bed, listening from your favorite quiet corner at home, or perhaps relaxing somewhere peaceful with the world fading away outside. I'm so glad you've joined me here. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders drop. Maybe pull the covers up a bit higher and feel the day gently slip away. Let the story begin. Harrington Manor, the perfect stage for high society glamour. Crystal chandeliers, silk gowns, champagne bubbling in the night. Every guest playing their polished role. Then, at the stroke of midnight, Sir Reginald Harrington raises the ancient silver chalice for the final toast. One sip, his face twists, froth on his lips, cyanide. He collapses, dead. Police call it accident or suicide. But Hercule Poirot sees something else entirely. A performance, a carefully rehearsed mask. Someone among these elegant actors is playing the deadliest role of all, the role of murderer. The spotlight is on, the masks are slipping, and Poirot is directing the final act. Chapter 1. The stage is set. The grand estate of Harrington Manor stood as the perfect stage for tragedy. Elegant Art Deco chandeliers threw golden light across polished mahogany, where guests in silk evening gowns and crisp tuxedos performed their roles in high society. Then, at midnight, Sir Reginald Harrington collapsed, dead, slumped over the ancient silver chalice from which he had just toasted. Froth clung to his lips. The sharp, unmistakable scent of bitter almonds, cyanide, hung in the air. Police called it accident or suicide, but Hercule Poirot recognized a performance. Someone among this cast was playing the role of innocent. Someone was playing the role of murderer. The curtain rises. Sound effect. Grandfather clock chiming 12 solemn notes. The drawing room shimmered with refined opulence. Velvet curtains framed tall windows that let in the chill night air. The fire crackled warmly in the grate, its heat pushing back against the cold marble floors. Crystal chandeliers tinkled softly overhead whenever someone moved. Expensive Chanel perfume drifted through the room, blending with the rich aroma of Cuban cigar smoke and fresh hothouse roses arranged in tall vases. Silk gowns rustled like whispered secrets as guests gathered closer. Sir Reginald, master of steel fortunes, had raised the family heirloom chalice for the traditional midnight toast, and the silver vessel gleamed under the lights as he poured deep red burgundy. To prosperity, and secrets well kept, he declared, voice carrying like a trained actor. Glasses lifted, champagne fizzed coldly against lips. Then he drank. His face twisted. The chalice clattered. He fell. Chaos erupted. Footsteps pounded across parquet. Lady Amelia Harrington gave a sharp, theatrical gasp, kid-gloved hands flying to her pearl necklace. Colonel James Fitzroy fumbled for a cigar, lighting it with trembling fingers. Smoke curled upward. The bitter taste of fear settled on every tongue like flat champagne. Poirot, present as a weekend guest, smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and stepped forward. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "The performance begins sooner than expected. Observe, mon ami." This host played the generous lord too perfectly. His final toast mentioned secrets. Was it an accidental line or a deliberate cue? The careful observer, and you are becoming careful known, will note that the chalice passed only through his hands. Yet poison reached him. The cast assembled instinctively, each slipping into their assigned part. Lady Amelia, elegant in midnight blue silk, performed the devastated widow, dabbing dry eyes with a lace handkerchief. Victor Harrington, the son, stood rigid in rough tweed, playing the dutiful air stunned into silence. Eleanor Voss, the private secretary, hovered near the edge, sandalwood cologne faint around her, enacting the efficient, loyal assistant. Dr. Marcus Thorne knelt beside the body, hands steady on cold marble, portraying the calm physician. Mrs. Beatrice Lang, housekeeper, twisted her crisp linen apron, embodying the simple, a grieving servant. Colonel Fitzroy paced, boots clicking softly, the picture of the concerned old friend. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. "The stage is set with exquisite precision," he said quietly. "Each actor wears their mask most firmly." Rain began tapping the window panes like impatient fingers. A distant piano note faded into silence. Tension simmered beneath the elegance, hot as fresh continental coffee. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theater? The widow's grief, does it convince or is it rehearsed? Inspector Japp arrived with uniformed men, their heavy boots breaking the room's symmetry. "Suicide or mishap, Poirot," he grunted. "The chalice belonged to him alone." Poirot drew himself up, still small in stature, and shook his head. "Mais non, mon ami. This is no solo performance. It is an ensemble piece, directed by Death." Dr. Thorne examined the body under warm lamplight, the strong scent of furniture, wax rising from polished tables. "Cyanide," he confirmed, "in the wine, instant." His voice stayed level. Poirot noticed no tremble in those hands, too steady for genuine shock. "Ah, but you say Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me." The tension rises. Someone will forget their lines soon. Guests were guided into the library. Leather-bound volumes scented the air, mingling with fresh lilies in crystal bowls. Poirot arranged chairs in perfect symmetry, small hands gesturing expressively. "We begin by observing the opening scenes," he announced. Lady Amelia accepted a glass of icy champagne, lips pursing at the dry taste. Victor lit another cigar. Smoke drifted lazily. This actor plays composure. Oh, but observe the eyes. Where is the flicker of real surprise? Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth. Midnight had passed, yet the true drama had only just begun. Poirot's green eyes gleamed with quiet satisfaction as he catalogued each performance. Outside, the cold terrace waited in darkness. Inside, fire warmth clashed with the chill of hidden deceit. The stage was set. The actors had taken their places. Let the drama begin. Chapter 2. Enter the Players. Harrington Manor lay hushed under a pale morning moon, its Art Deco lines still elegant even after midnight's tragedy. The chalice rested on a side table, like a forgotten prop, its silver surface now dull with the weight of poison. Guests moved through the house like actors waiting for their next cue. Voices low, eyes watchful. Alibis were already forming, smooth scripts for some, hesitant lines for others. Police asked basic questions. Hercule Poirot asked deeper ones. Someone was performing innocence with dangerous skill. But every actor eventually forgets their lines. The curtain rises. Sound effect. Soft closing of a heavy library door. The library became the first proper stage for interrogation. Velvet curtains were drawn against the rain that tapped insistently on the tall windows. The fire crackled warmly, pushing back the chill that crept in from the terrace. Strong continental coffee steamed in porcelain cups, its rich aroma mingling with the scent of furniture wax and fresh lilies arranged in crystal vases. Poirot seated himself behind the wide mahogany desk, arranging pens and blotter with precise small movements until everything stood in perfect symmetry. Mesdames et messieurs, he announced quietly, the players must now enter, one by one. We shall see what roles each has chosen. Lady Amelia Harrington came first. Her midnight blue silk gown had been replaced by a charcoal tweed suit, still elegant, still controlled. She sat with perfect posture, kid gloves folded neatly in her lap, performing the grieving widow with practiced dignity. I never left the drawing room after dinner, she said, voice low and steady. I was speaking with Colonel Fitzroy until just before the toast. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed once, a single solemn note. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head and regarded her. Observe, mon ami. This widow plays sorrow too perfectly. The handkerchief is held correctly, and the voice trembles at exactly the right moments. But ask yourself, why does she never once mention the chalice by name? The mask slips. Did you see it? Victor Harrington entered next. Rough tweed jacket, collar slightly askew, Cuban cigar already lit between his fingers. Smoke curled lazily toward the ceiling as he paced before the fireplace. I was in the study most of the evening, he said. Father and I had words earlier. Business, nothing more. I heard the crash and ran in like everyone else. His hand was steady as he drew on the cigar, but Poirot noted the faint tremor when he exhaled. This performance, it is rehearsed. Truth does not rehearse. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how this one's fingers tighten on the cigar when the word father is spoken. Eleanor Voss followed, moving with the quiet precision of long habit. Sandalwood cologne drifted faintly as she sat on the edge of the chair, hands folded, eyes lowered. I polished the chalice myself that afternoon, as Sir Reginald instructed, she admitted. Then I filled it with the burgundy he selected. After that, I returned to my room to type letters until the commotion began. A single crystal glass of water stood before her. She touched it, but did not drink. Watch this performance carefully. Is it truth or theatre? The secretary plays devotion, yet her eyes flick toward the door whenever Sir Reginald's name is mentioned. Too perfect, too controlled. Dr. Marcus Thorne came in briskly, medical bag placed neatly beside him. He smoothed an invisible crease from his sleeve and sat upright. I examined Sir Reginald at 6 o'clock, he stated. He was in excellent health, blood pressure normal, no complaints. I left the house at 7:15 and returned only when summoned after the incident. The firelight caught the gold of his watch chain. His voice never wavered. Ah, but you say Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. This doctor plays calm professionalism. But observe, the fingers that once held a stethoscope to a dying man's chest do not tremble at all. Where is the natural shock of sudden death? Mrs. Beatrice Lang, the housekeeper, entered last. Her crisp linen apron was immaculate despite the hour. She stood rather than sat, hands clasped before her. I carried the decanter of Burgundy to the drawing room at 11:30, she said softly. I never touched the chalice itself. I was in the kitchen preparing coffee when I heard the scream. Rain drummed harder against the glass. A distant door closed with a soft click somewhere in the house. Consider the psychology. What role does this woman need to play? The loyal old servant, simple, unthreatening, invisible, yet her eyes are sharp, too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Colonel James Fitzroy was summoned next. Polished boots, military bearing, the scent of cigar smoke still clinging to his dinner jacket. He sat heavily. I was on the terrace having a smoke after 11, he explained. Needed fresh air. Heard the commotion and came running, that's all. His gaze was direct, almost too direct. If you were hiding guilt, mon ami, how would you perform innocence? Steady eyes, firm voice, military posture. Bravo. But the performance, it is not entirely convincing. Poirot leaned back, green eyes gleaming in the firelight. Each alibi had been delivered like a well-memorized speech. Some flowed without pause. Others hesitated at tiny, almost imperceptible points. He made an expressive gesture with his small, neat hands. The players have entered, he said softly to the empty air. Each has taken their mark. But who among them is speaking truth? And who is reciting lines written in fear, in greed, in hate? Outside, rain continued to fall. Inside, the fire snapped and the coffee cooled. The first round of scenes had ended, yet the real drama was only gathering strength. Every actor had taken their place, but who played truth and who played lies? Chapter 3. The First Act. Morning light filtered weakly through the heavy velvet curtains of Harrington Manor, turning the grand rooms into a stage lit for the second scene. Sir Reginald's body had been removed, yet the sharp ghost of bitter almonds still lingered faintly in the drawing-room air. Suspects moved carefully now, aware that every gesture was being watched. Alibis that sounded solid in the dark hours of night began to show thin places under daylight scrutiny. A small but telling crack appeared in one performance. Poirot turned the spotlight inward. The first mask would fracture. The curtain rises. Sound effect. Distant grandfather clock. Striking 9, slow and deliberate. Breakfast was served in the sunlit morning room. Polished mahogany reflected the pale winter sun. Strong continental coffee steamed in silver pots. Its rich, dark aroma battled the lingering wood smoke from last night's fire. Crisp linen napkins lay folded beside fine china. Poirot sipped black coffee. Hot, bitter, perfect, and observed the cast as they took their places around the long table. Lady Amelia Harrington entered last. She wore a simple grey wool dress now, no jewelry except her wedding band. She sat with straight back, accepted coffee without looking at anyone, and performed composed widowhood with quiet dignity. Poirot watched her hands. When she lifted the cup to her lips, the porcelain did not tremble. When she set it down, the saucer made no sound. The performance. She speaks of her husband in soft, measured tones. She dabs at dry eyes with precision. The shoulders rise and fall in the correct rhythm of suppressed grief. The tell. But observe. The handkerchief never absorbs a single tear. The mascara stays perfect. The performance of sorrow is technically flawless. Too flawless. The psychology. I am reminded of the Ackroyd affair, in where a man performed horrified shock so convincingly that even Hercule Poirot was, for one brief moment, deceived. He had rehearsed before mirrors, widened eyes, dropped jaw, trembling lip, every detail perfect. Yet he made one fatal error. When he reached for his cigarette case afterward, his hand was rock steady. A truly shocked man does not have steady hands. The body remembers truth, even when the face lies. The little grey cells understand this. The subconscious betrays what the conscious mind rehearses. In that case, greed wore the mask of loyalty. Practice made the performance brilliant, but never perfect. One tiny physical tell, and the entire theatre collapsed. The truth. Therefore, Madame knew of the death before the chalice fell. Her grief is costume, not emotion. You see it now, no? The first crack has appeared. Observe. Et mon ami, this widow plays mourning too perfectly. The mask slips, just a fraction. Did you catch it? Ask yourself, why does genuine sorrow always leave some trace, while performed sorrow leaves none? Victor Harrington pushed back from the table abruptly. His rough tweed jacket was the same as last night. Cigar smoke still clung to the fabric. He claimed he had been alone in the study, writing letters. Yet Mrs. Lang, passing the corridor at 11:45, had heard 2 sets of footsteps, not one. Poirot tilted his egg-shaped head. This performance of the dutiful son is strained already. The alibi wavers like a poorly learned line. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how his fingers drum the table when the study is mentioned. Eleanor Voss sat quietly at the far end, sandalwood cologne, faint but persistent. She produced a single-folded letter from her pocket, smooth paper, edges slightly worn. Sir Reginald wrote this to me 2 weeks ago, she said softly. He promised certain things. I did not expect him to die so soon. Her voice cracked once, genuine. Poirot noted it. Watch this performance carefully. Is the emotion real here? Or is even this moment part of a larger script? The tension rises. Someone will forget their lines very soon. Dr. Marcus Thorne spoke next, calm and professional. He confirmed he had prescribed a tonic containing trace cyanide compounds for Sir Reginald's nerves. Legal, common at the time. The bottle is still in my bag, he said. You may check it. His hands rested flat on the table, too still. But you say... Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. This doctor plays detached healer. But observe. The pulse at his throat beats faster when cyanide is named. Where is the professional indifference? Mrs. Beatrice Lang hovered near the sideboard, refilling coffee pots with mechanical precision. She claimed she never handled the chalice. Yet the key to the silver cupboard, where the chalice was normally stored, had been on her ring all evening. Poirot's green eyes gleamed. Consider the psychology. What role must the loyal old servant play? Invisible, trustworthy, harmless, yet invisible people hear everything and see more than they admit. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Colonel Fitzroy lit yet another Cuban cigar. The match flared. His hand did not shake. He repeated that he had been on the terrace smoking. But the terrace tiles had been wet from earlier rain. Yet his polished boots showed no mud. No watermarks. If you are hiding something, mon ami, how would you perform the innocent bystander? Steady hands, direct gaze, military calm. Bravo. But the performance, it begins to show strain. Poirot rose slowly. He made an expressive gesture with his small, neat hands. In this theater of human nature, every actor wears a mask. Some masks are worn from fear, of exposure, of poverty, of rejection. Some are worn from greed, or from love turned possessive. We perform because raw truth is dangerous, yet no mask is perfect forever. The body betrays us, dry handkerchiefs, steady hands, averted eyes, too even breathing. In the Blue Train mystery, a woman masked jealousy as cool indifference. She smiled perfectly, spoke softly, yet one stolen glance toward the victim betrayed everything. The little grey cells see what the audience misses. A universal truth, the spotlight of truth, eventually finds every hidden crack. The first act concluded. Some masks had cracked. More would follow. Chapter 4. Rehearsed Lines. By late afternoon, the atmosphere inside Harrington Manor had thickened like fog, rolling across a stage just before the climax. The elegant drawing room, once bright with laughter and champagne, now felt heavy, oppressive. Every glance between the guests carried suspicion. Every silence seemed rehearsed. Alibis that had sounded plausible at midnight were now being tested under the harsh light of Poirot's methodical questions. Lines began to falter. Performances strained at the seams. Truth, which needs no rehearsal, waited patiently in the wings. The curtain rises. Sound effect. Champagne cork popping sharply. Then silence. Poirot had summoned them all back to the drawing room. The crystal chandelier tinkled overhead whenever anyone shifted in their seat. The fire crackled steadily, sending waves of warmth against the chill that seeped through the tall windows from the rain-soaked terrace beyond. The scent of Cuban cigar smoke still clung to the velvet curtains. Fresh, hothouse lilies stood in crystal vases, their perfume cloying now instead of welcoming. Strong continental coffee cooled untouched in porcelain cups on the low mahogany table. Poirot stood at the center, small and precise, green eyes gleaming. He smoothed an imaginary wrinkle from his sleeve and began. Mesdames et messieurs, your alibis are like scripts. Beautifully written, carefully memorized. But now we shall see how well they hold when the prompter is silent. He turned first to Lady Amelia. She sat very straight in the high-backed chair, hands folded in the lap of her grey wool dress. You say you remained in the drawing-room, speaking with Colonel Fitzroy, until moments before the toast, Poirot said gently. Yet a footman reports seeing a woman in a dark evening gown, your gown, madame, near the sideboard where the chalice waited at 11:40. Lady Amelia's lips tightened. The kid gloves in her lap creased as her fingers clenched. The footman is mistaken, she replied, voice level. I never approached the chalice. Observe, mon ami, this widow plays injured innocence too perfectly. The voice remains calm, the posture regal. But ask yourself, why do her eyes flick toward the terrace doors when the footman is mentioned? On the mask's lips. Did you see it? Victor Harrington rose abruptly, pacing before the fireplace. His rough tweed jacket smelled faintly of wet earth. I was in the study the entire time, he repeated stubbornly. Poirot produced a small photograph, taken that morning, of muddy footprints on the terrace tiles. The pattern matched the soles of Victor's brogues exactly. Your study has no terrace access, monsieur, Poirot said softly. Yet these prints lead directly from the French doors near the sideboard, back toward the study corridor. Victor's cigar trembled between his fingers. Ash fell unnoticed onto the polished parquet. I stepped out for air. Briefly, that's all. This performance of the wronged son is cracking. The alibi falters like an actor who has forgotten the next line. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how his hand shakes now when he tries to light another match. Eleanor Voss sat very still, sandalwood cologne faint in the warm air. Poirot placed before her the half-burnt letter she had tried to destroy in the library grate last night. Charred edges still showed fragments of passionate words. You say your feelings for Sir Reginald were merely professional, Poirot murmured. Yet these lines speak of promises, of a future together. Eleanor's composure shattered for one instant, eyes wide, breath catching. I burned it because it was private, not because I killed him. Watch this performance carefully. Is the sudden emotion genuine, or another layer of the same carefully constructed role? The tension rises. Someone will break character very soon. Dr. Thorne adjusted his cufflinks with deliberate calm. De Poirot opened the medical bag the doctor had left on the side table. Inside, nestled among instruments, lay a small brown vial, clearly labeled potassium cyanide, for laboratory use only. You told us the tonic contained only trace amounts, Poirot said. This bottle suggests otherwise. Thorne's face remained impassive, but a bead of sweat appeared at his temple despite the cool room. That is a standard preparation. Many physicians carry it. Ah, but you see, Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. This doctor plays detached science. But observe, the single drop of perspiration betrays what his voice will not. Where is the calm of an innocent man? Mrs. Beatrice Long stood near the doorway, crisp linen apron immaculate. Poirot held up a small brass key. This opens the silver cupboard where the chalice was stored. It was found in your apron pocket this morning, madam, though you insist you never touched the chalice. The housekeeper's lips moved soundlessly for a moment. I check the silver every evening. Habit. Consider the psychology. What role must the invisible servant play? Harmless, forgettable. Yet servants who handle keys hear conversations, see preparations, no routines. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles, lies flow smooth. Colonel Fitzroy sat heavily in the leather armchair, boots gleaming. Poirot placed before him a folded sheet of paper, a promissory note for £8,000, dated 6 weeks earlier, signed by Sir Reginald. The colonel's face darkened. You told us your friendship was without complication, Poirot said. Yet this debt was due tomorrow, a most inconvenient deadline. Fitzroy exhaled cigar smoke in a long, controlled stream. Reginald was going to extend the terms. We discussed it. If you were concealing desperation, mon ami, how would you perform the bluff old soldier? Firm voice, steady gaze, military bearing. Bravo. But the performance, it is no longer convincing. Poirot stepped back, small hands making an expressive gesture that encompassed them all. Rehearsed lines are beautiful things until pressure is applied. Then the actor hesitates. The voice catches. The hand trembles. Truth requires no rehearsal. It simply is. The fire snapped loudly in the sudden silence. Rain drummed harder against the windows. Coffee had gone cold in every cup. Rehearsed lines began to falter. Truth needed no rehearsal. On Chapter 5, the mask slips. Evening descended on Harrington Manor like the final lowering of house lights before the most dangerous scene. The drawing room, once a glittering stage of champagne and laughter, now felt small, suffocating. Every breath seemed louder. Every rustle of silk carried accusation. Poirot had decided the time for gentle probing was over. Tonight, someone's carefully constructed mask would fall completely, and with it, perhaps, the first true glimpse of the murderer. Emotions long rehearsed would give way to something raw. The curtain rises, sound effect, fire crackling sharply, then sudden silence. Poirot chose the library for the confrontation. Its leather-bound books and heavy velvet curtains created a natural theater of intimacy and pressure. A single lamp burned low, casting long shadows across the polished mahogany desk. The air held the faint scent of sandalwood cologne and old paper, undercut by the wood smoke still drifting from the dying fire. Rain tapped insistently at the tall windows like an impatient audience. He summoned Elena Voss first. She entered quietly, posture straight, hands clasped before her simple black dress. Yet the moment she saw Poirot standing alone behind the desk, something flickered in her dark eyes. Fear, perhaps, or the beginning of relief. Mademoiselle Voss, Poirot began softly. Your performance as the devoted, discreet secretary has been admirable, almost too admirable. But the role of innocent bystander no longer fits. He placed the charred remnants of the love letter on the desk between them. The paper was fragile now, words half eaten by flame, and yet still legible in places. Promise you everything once he is gone. Eleanor's breath caught audibly. She stared at the fragment as though it might burn her again. The performance. She lifts her chin, attempts the calm denial she has rehearsed so many times. It was only fantasy, she says, words written in a moment of weakness. I never wished him harm. The tell. But observe. The letter trembles in her fingers when she touches it. The eyes fill with real tears, not the dry performance of Lady Amelia. The shoulders slump, not in defeat, but in release. The mask of cool professionalism cracks wide open. The psychology. I recall the case of Evelyn Howard in Styles, where a woman masked fierce, possessive love as casual friendship for years. She wrote no letters. She burned them all. But her obsession lived in every careful glance, in every too helpful gesture. She practiced indifference until it became habit. Yet when the moment of truth arrived, her hands clutched too tightly, her voice rose too suddenly. The body cannot lie forever about what the heart feels. Obsession wears many masks: devotion, duty, indifference. But beneath them all beats the same frantic pulse. In that case, love turned to poison because it could not bear rejection. Here too, mademoiselle, the little grey cells see the same pattern. The truth. You loved Sir Reginald desperately. When he chose not to leave his wife, when he withdrew the promises in that letter, love became obsession. Obsession became rage. You see it now, no? Beneath the mask, the true face at last. Eleanor's composure shattered completely. She sank into the nearest chair, hands covering her face. Genuine sobs shook her shoulders. A mascara ran in dark tracks down her cheeks. For the first time since the murder, someone cried real tears in Poirot's presence. I did not kill him, she whispered between sobs. I wanted to. God help me, in that moment I wanted to. But I did not put anything in the chalice, I swear it. Poirot regarded her quietly. The raw grief was convincing, because it was no longer rehearsed. Observe, mon ami. This woman no longer plays a part. The tears are wet. The voice breaks naturally. The mask has fallen. Did you see how suddenly truth appeared when performance stopped? At that moment, the library door opened. Victor Harrington stood framed in the doorway, rough tweed jacket damp from the terrace, cigar unlit between his fingers. He had clearly been listening. You? He said hoarsely to Elena. Though all this time, it was you who loved him enough to hate him? Elena lifted her tear-streaked face. I hated what he did to me, not what he was. Victor stepped forward, boots leaving faint, wet prints on the parquet. Then who did kill him? If not you? Poirot raised one small, neat hand. Patience, monsieur. The masks are slipping one by one. Soon the principal actor will stand revealed. Lady Amelia appeared next in the doorway, silk scarf clutched at her throat like a shield. She had overheard enough. Her carefully maintained widow's composure wavered. For one instant, raw relief flashed across her features before she masked it again. Champagne glasses stood untouched on the side table, their contents long gone flat and warm. The crystal chandelier in the hall beyond tinkled faintly as someone passed. Dr. Thorne hovered just outside, a medical bag in hand, as though ready to administer calm to whoever broke next. Mrs. Lang watched silently from the shadows of the corridor, crisp apron glowing pale in the dim light. Colonel Fitzroy's heavy footsteps echoed somewhere upstairs, pacing, always pacing. Poirot made an expressive gesture with both hands, drawing the invisible threads of the drama tighter. Tonight, we have seen real feeling emerge from behind the performance. Grief that is wet, fear that trembles, love that twists into something darker. This is progress. The theatre cannot long contain so much truth pressing against its walls. He turned slowly, green eyes sweeping the doorway where the others stood frozen. If you were the murderer, mon ami, how long could you maintain the role while watching others' masks fall? How long before your own hands betray you? On the spotlight of truth grows brighter. On whom will it fall next? The library fire gave one final sharp crackle. The mask had fallen. Beneath it, the true face at last. Chapter 6. Behind the Curtain. Night had fully claimed Harrington Manor. The grand house, once a glittering stage for society's polite performances, now felt like the darkened backstage area after the audience has gone home, full of discarded costumes, forgotten props, and the lingering smell of grease paint and fear. Every elegant room held secrets that no longer wished to stay hidden. Letters, ledgers, whispered conversations from years past were dragged into the light. Connections long concealed were finally exposed. Behind every curtain, Poirot pulled aside. A motive waited. The curtain rises. Sound effect, distant piano notes, slow and melancholy, a fading into rain on the windows. Poirot had moved the inquiry to the small morning room. Less formal, more intimate, its walls lined with family portraits that seemed to watch every word. A single fire burned low in the grate, casting flickering warmth across polished mahogany and velvet cushions. The air carried the faint scent of wood smoke, mixed with the last traces of hothouse lilies wilting in their crystal vase. Strong coffee had been brought in. It stood cooling in porcelain cups nobody touched. He began with Victor Harrington. The sun sat heavily in a leather armchair, rough tweed jacket unbuttoned, Cuban cigar forgotten between his fingers. Poirot placed before him a thin sheaf of papers, gambling debts, promissory notes, bank statements, showing withdrawals that far exceeded any legitimate allowance. You were to inherit everything, Poirot said quietly. Yet these documents show you owed nearly £20,000, debts your father refused to cover after your last indiscretion. The will was to be changed next week. You knew this. Victor's face worked. He tried to light the cigars. The match flared, then died. His hand shook noticeably now. I argued with him that evening. He admitted at last. He said he was cutting me out. I lost my temper, but I did not poison him. I swear it. Observe, mon ami, this sun no longer plays the dutiful air. The mask of composure has been stripped away. Did you see how the match failed him? Truth needs no rehearsal. Guilt trembles. Next came Lady Amelia and Colonel Fitzroy together. Poirot laid out a small packet of letters tied with faded ribbon. And they had been discovered behind a loose brick in the library fireplace. Love letters, passionate, reckless, written over 3 years. The most recent was dated only 10 days before the murder. You performed the grieving widow so convincingly, Poirot said to Lady Amelia. Yet these letters tell another story. You and the Colonel planned a future together. Once Sir Reginald was no longer an obstacle. Lady Amelia's silk scarf slipped from her fingers. Her face drained of color. The Colonel shifted uncomfortably. His polished boots scraped the parquet. We loved each other, she whispered, but we never acted? Poirot finished gently. Perhaps not. But the intention was there. And intention, mesdames et messieurs, is the backstage where murder is rehearsed. This performance of loyal friendship between old comrades is crumbling. The colonel's steady military gaze falters when the letters are named. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how his hand seeks the comfort of a cigar case that is no longer there. Elena Voss returned, eyes red from earlier tears. Poirot showed her a second document, a draft codicil to Sir Reginald's will, unsigned, leaving her a substantial annuity for faithful service. It had been torn in half. He promised me security, she said dully. Then he changed his mind, said it would look improper. I burned my copy, but he kept his. Watch this performance carefully. The secretary no longer pretends cool detachment. The emotion is raw now, hurt, not hatred. Is the pain genuine, or the final layer of a very clever role? Dr. Thorne was summoned last. Poirot opened a small ledger found in the doctor's medical bag, records of payments from Sir Reginald over 2 years. Blackmail amounts, discreetly labeled consultation fees. You treated Sir Reginald for a heart condition, Poirot said. But you also knew of his affair with Mademoiselle Voss, and of Lady Amelia's indiscretion. Knowledge is expensive, Doctor. And when the payments stopped, Thorne's professional calm cracked at last. He threatened to report me to the medical council, ruin me. I only wanted what was owed. Ah, but you say, Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. This healer plays wounded innocence. But observe, the fingers that once wrote prescriptions now twist together like a man trying to strangle his own guilt. Mrs. Beatrice Lang stood last in the doorway, crisp linen apron, still perfect. But Poirot held up an old household ledger, entries in her neat hand, showing small but regular sums missing from the silver and wine accounts over 15 years. You served this family since Sir Reginald was a boy? Poirot said softly. Loyalty masked theft. When he began auditing the books last month, you feared exposure. The housekeeper's lips trembled. I only took what I needed. For my sister. She's ill. I never meant. Consider the psychology. What role does the faithful old servant need to play? Invisible, trustworthy, eternally grateful. Yet long service breeds resentment. Small thefts grow into larger fears. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles. Lies flow smooth. Poirot stepped back, small hands making an expressive gesture that seemed to draw invisible curtains aside. In every human drama, behind the performance lies the motive. We wear masks because naked truth is unbearable. Fear of judgment, greed for what we cannot have, love twisted into possession, pride that cannot admit weakness. In the Orient Express affair, 12 people wore masks of normalcy to hide a shared act of vengeance. Each performed innocence until the final revelation stripped them bare. Psychology teaches us that motives are roots buried deep. Performances are only the branches we see waving in the wind, but pull one thread, and the whole structure trembles. Secrets fester in darkness. They wither in the spotlight. Universal truth. No curtain stays closed forever. Theatrical wisdom for you, mon ami. Always look behind the scenery. That is where the real play is written. Behind every curtain, a secret. Behind every secret, a motive. Now Chapter 7, the final act. The drawing room of Harrington Manor had become the grandest theatre of all. Every chair was occupied. Every face turned towards the small, immaculate figure who stood at the center like a director calling the curtain on the last scene. The crystal chandelier tinkled faintly overhead. The fire crackled low, sending warm shadows dancing across polished mahogany and velvet. Rain drummed steadily against the tall windows, a natural drum roll for the revelation to come. The air held the mingled scents of wood smoke, wilting lilies, and the faint, lingering trace of Cuban cigar smoke. No one spoke. No one moved. The cast was assembled. The spotlight of truth was ready to fall. The curtain rises. Sound effect. Single crystal glass gently tapped with a spoon. Clear, resonant. Ni final. Hercule Poirot drew himself up, still small in stature, yet suddenly enormous in presence. His green eyes swept slowly across every face. Mesdames et messieurs, he began in his quiet, precise voice. You have each performed for Hercule Poirot. Some performances were truthful, some less so. Now the final act arrives. Let us review the roles you have played. He turned first to Lady Amelia Harrington. You, madame, played the grieving widow. The handkerchief dabbed, the voice trembled, the eyes remained admirably dry. Magnifique technique. But grief that leaves no moisture is costume, not feeling. Your affair with Colonel Fitzroy, the letters hidden in the fireplace, these speak of relief, not sorrow. You knew freedom was coming. The performance was beautiful, but unconvincing. Lady Amelia's lips parted, but no sound came. Poirot moved to Victor Harrington. You played the loyal, shocked son. Outrage, cooperation, steady offers of help. Yet your alibi crumbled. Footprints in the rain, gambling debts that would vanish with inheritance, a will about to be rewritten. You argued with your father that very evening. When you handed him the chalice for the toast, your hand did not shake. Not once. Victor's cigar fell from nerveless fingers onto the parquet. It rolled once and stopped. Poirot turned to Elena Voss. You performed the innocent secretary, devoted, discreet, heartbroken only after the fact. Yet obsessive love letters, torn codicils, promises withdrawn. These are not the props of an innocent bystander. Jealousy burned bright behind your calm mask. Eleanor bowed her head. A single genuine tear fell onto her clasped hands. Dr. Thorne, Poirot continued, you enacted the helpful physician, calm, professional, always ready with medical insight. Yet blackmail payments recorded in your ledger, cyanide in your bag. The helper became the extortionist when the money stopped. The doctor's face went grey. His medical bag slipped to the floor with a soft thud. Mrs. Lang, you portrayed the simple, loyal servant, quiet, invisible, harmless. Yet small thefts grew over years. Fear of exposure when the books were audited turned theft into something darker. The housekeeper's crisp apron trembled at her breast. Colonel Fitzroy, you played the bluff, loyal friend. Military bearing, steady gaze, old-school honor, yet massive debts. Love letters promising a shared future. A deadline that would ruin you. The friend became desperate. The colonel stared straight ahead, jaw locked, no cigar to hide behind. Poirot paused. He made one slow, expressive gesture with his small hands, as though drawing every thread of the drama into a single knot. And so we come to our leading performer. He stepped closer to Victor Harrington. You, monsieur, gave the most convincing performance of all. Shock at the collapse, outrage at the suggestion of foul play, helpful suggestions to the police, cooperation without hesitation, truly magnifique. But you made one small fatal error. One moment when the mask slipped completely. Victor looked up, eyes wide. When you refilled your father's chalice just before the toast, Poirot said softly, you struck a match to light your cigar afterward. The match flared on the first try. Your hand was rock steady. No tremble, no shake. Yet a son who has just watched his father die. even if by his own hand, does not light a match so calmly. Adrenaline from guilt steadies the hand unnaturally. Grief shakes it. You felt neither grief nor surprise, because you already knew what would happen. The performance. You smiled sadly, offered brandy to the ladies, spoke of calling the family solicitor at once. Every gesture correct, every word appropriate. The tell. But the match, first strike, perfect flame. No fumbling, no hesitation. A man in genuine shock drops things, misses the striker, burns his fingers. You did none of these. The psychology. I recall the case on the Nile, where a young heir performed filial devotion flawlessly, tears at the right moment, voice breaking on cue. Yet when he fired the fatal shot, his aim was perfect, his hand steady as stone, and he had rehearsed composure so long that guilt became calm calculation. The body betrays what the mind hides. Genuine emotion disrupts fine motor control. Murderous intent sharpens it. The little gray cells understand. The steady hand is often the murderer's signature, not the innocence. The truth. You poisoned the chalice, knowing your father would drink alone. You acted the shocked son afterward, because you had rehearsed that role too. But truth needs no rehearsal. You see it now, no? The theater ends here. Victor made a small, choked sound. His shoulders sagged. The mask fell away entirely, revealing not a monster, but a weak, desperate man who had gambled once too often. Poirot turned to the room at large. The performance is over. The curtain falls. The truth takes her bow. He stepped back. Inspector Japp, one who had waited silently by the door, moved forward with his men. Observe, mon ami, this leading actor played his greatest role until the final cue. The mask slipped on a single match. Did you see it? This performance, it was rehearsed to perfection. Truth does not rehearse. Watch carefully. The tension that built for days now releases in one moment. Ah, but you say, Poirot sees too much in small things. Bear with me. The spotlight has found its mark. Consider the psychology. When the curtain falls, what remains? Only the actor who can no longer pretend. Too perfect, too rehearsed. Truth stumbles at last, and lies collapse. The spotlight of truth has fallen. It fell on Victor Harrington. The final act concluded. Only truth survived the curtain call. The Chapter 8. Curtain Call. The drawing room of Harrington Manor felt strangely empty once the final words had been spoken. The chandelier still glittered overhead, but its light now seemed colder, less forgiving. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, sending occasional sparks upward, like dying applause. Rain continued to fall outside, softer now, almost apologetic. The air held the faint, lingering sense of wood smoke, wilting lilies, and the last traces of Cuban cigar smoke that would never again curl from Victor Harrington's fingers in this house. Justice had arrived, not with fanfare, but with the quiet click of handcuffs and the low murmur of official voices. There was no curtain call applause, only silence and the slow stripping away of every remaining mask. The curtain rises one last time, when sound effect, soft rain on window panes, fading into distant footsteps retreating down the hall. Victor Harrington stood between two uniformed officers. His rough tweed jacket hung loosely now. The collar was askew, the cigar long gone from his lips. The steady hand that had struck the match so perfectly earlier that evening now trembled visibly as the cuffs closed around his wrists. He looked smaller, diminished, not the confident heir who had performed shock and outrage so convincingly, but a man who had finally run out of lines. When Inspector Japp read the formal charge, Victor did not protest. He only nodded once, eyes fixed on the floor, as though studying the parquet pattern. He would never walk freely again. Observe, mon ami, this leading actor's final performance is over. The mask of composure has shattered completely. Did you see how the shoulders slump when the cuffs click shut? No more rehearsal, no more script, only consequence. Lady Amelia Harrington remained seated long after the others had risen. Her grey wool dress seemed suddenly too large for her frame. The lace handkerchief she had used so many times to dab dry eyes now lay crumpled in her lap. Unused, unnecessary. For the first time since midnight, her face showed no performance at all. Relief flickered there, raw and unguarded, followed quickly by something closer to shame. She had worn the mask of grieving widow for so long that removing it left her exposed, uncertain. When Jap asked if she wished to make a statement about the letters and the affair, she only shook her head. I thought freedom would feel different, she whispered, to no one in particular, and this performance of sorrow is finished. Beneath it was never grief, only waiting. You watch with Poirot, no? You see how the hands no longer clutch at pearls or handkerchiefs, because the role is done. Eleanor Voss stood near the tall windows, watching rain streak the glass. Her black dress was creased from hours of tension. Sandalwood cologne had faded to almost nothing. The obsessive love that had once burned behind her calm secretary's mask had been replaced by quiet exhaustion. She had confessed nothing new after the library breakdown, but the truth of her feelings no longer needed hiding. When a constable asked her to remain available for further questions, she nodded without argument. For the first time, her eyes were clear, not darting, not guarded. Watch this performance carefully. The secretary no longer plays devotion or innocence. Or what remains is simply a woman who loved too much and lost everything. The tears earlier were real. The silence now is honest. Dr. Marcus Thorne sat apart, medical bag at his feet like an abandoned prop. The professional calm he had worn so well had cracked wide open. His face was grey, eyes hollow. He had already admitted to the blackmail in a low voice when Jap questioned him privately. No denials, no excuses, only a weary nod. When the inspector mentioned reporting him to the medical council, Thorne did not flinch. The helpful physician mask was gone. What remained was a man who had traded ethics for money and found both worthless. Ah, but you say, Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. This doctor's hands, once so steady with a stethoscope, now lie open on his knees, empty, useless. The performance of healer is over. Mrs. Beatrice Lang stood near the doorway, crisp linen apron still immaculate despite everything. She had not been arrested. Her thefts were small, old, and born of desperation rather than murder. But the household ledger entries had stripped her of the loyal servant role she had played for decades. When Lady Amelia looked toward her, the housekeeper lowered her eyes. No more invisible service. No more quiet thefts hidden behind routine. She would leave Harrington Manor tomorrow, perhaps forever. Consider the psychology. The old servant needed to be harmless, grateful, unseen. When the mask fell, what remained was not villainy, but simple human fear. Too perfect, too rehearsed, truth stumbles at last. Colonel James Fitzroy paced once across the room, boots no longer military sharp, then stopped. The bluff friend, the steady soldier, had dissolved. Debts would be paid now, one way or another. The future he and Amelia had whispered about in stolen letters would never arrive. He met Poirot's gaze for a single moment, then looked away. No cigar to light, no posture to maintain. Only a man facing the wreckage of his own performance. If you were hiding desperation behind honor, mon ami, how would the curtain call feel? No applause, no encore. Only the echo of boots on parquet as justice begins its slow walk. Poirot stood quietly near the fireplace, small hands clasped behind his back. He watched each transformation without comment. The elegant stage that had hosted champagne toasts and midnight poison was now a crime scene being catalogued. Officers moved with quiet efficiency, measuring, noting, removing the silver chalice in an evidence bag. As the room grew colder as the fire died, justice does not applaud. It simply arrives, removes the masks, and leaves the actors to face themselves in the sudden merciless light. The transformations were complete. Victor, from confident performer to prisoner. Amelia, from grieving widow to relieved ashamed woman. Eleanor, from obsessive lover to grieving survivor. Thorne, from helpful doctor to disgraced blackmailer. Lang, from loyal servant to exposed thief. Fitzroy, from loyal friend to desperate debtor. And the house itself, from glittering theatre of wealth to quiet, ordinary place where people must now live with truth. Poirot touched his magnificent moustache once, thoughtfully. No applause for this performance, only justice. Chapter 9. After the show. Harrington Manor lay quiet for the first time in days. The storm had passed. Pale morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows, turning dust motes into soft, drifting sparks. The drawing room, once heavy with cigar smoke and suspicion, now smelled only of furniture wax and fading lilies. Officers had departed with their evidence bags and statements. The silver chalice was gone, taken to be locked away as an exhibit. The stage lights had dimmed. The actors, stripped of their roles, began the slow business of living with what remained. The curtain had fallen. What lingered now were the lessons and the small human transformations that truth sometimes forces upon those who survive it. The curtain rises one final gentle time. Sound effect. Distant footsteps on parquet, slow and unhurried, fading into birdsong outside. Lady Amelia Harrington walked alone through the long gallery that morning. She had removed her grey wool dress and put on a simple cream blouse and skirt, clothes that belonged to no performance. The pearl necklace she once clutched like a shield now rested in a drawer upstairs. She paused before the portrait of Sir Reginald, studying the painted face as though seeing it clearly for the first time. Relief had settled into something quieter. Acceptance, perhaps even the beginning of peace. The affair with Colonel Fitzroy would not continue. Both had agreed, without drama, that some curtains must stay closed forever. She had already instructed the solicitors to sell the ancient chalice. Its silver would fund a small charitable trust in her husband's name, a gesture born not of guilt but of clarity. Observe, mon ami, this woman no longer plays the grieving widow. In the performance, she moves through the house with calm purpose, decisions made without hesitation. The tell, no handkerchief clutched, no eyes averted. Composure is no longer rehearsed. It has become natural. The psychology, in the case of Sad Cypress, a woman masked ruthless ambition behind sorrow for years. When the masks fell, she discovered freedom, not in power, but in honesty. Psychology teaches that shedding false roles can be painful, yet it liberates. Society demands we wear certain faces, devoted wife, loyal friend. But when those faces crack, what emerges is sometimes stronger, simpler, truer. You see it now, no? Transformation complete. Eleanor Voss packed her few belongings in the small upstairs room that had once been her office. The typewriter sat silent. The desk was cleared. But she had burned no more letters, only folded the remaining fragments into an envelope and placed them in her suitcase. Obsession had burned itself out in the library that night. What remained was grief, clean, honest, without poison. She had accepted a position in Paris, far from English country houses and midnight toasts. When she passed Lady Amelia in the corridor, the two women paused. No words passed between them, only a small nod, a mutual recognition that both had loved the same man in different, destructive ways, and both had survived him. This performance of devoted secretary is finished. Beneath the mask was passion, beneath passion was pain. Now only quiet departure remains. Dr. Marcus Thorne left quietly after luncheon. His medical bag, once a prop of calm authority, now felt heavy with shame. He had already written to the council, in offering his resignation before they could demand it. Blackmail had seemed a small sin when the payments came regularly. In the cold light of exposure, it loomed monstrous. Yet confession had lifted something from his shoulders. He would return to a modest practice in a northern town. Fewer patients, less money, more honesty. When he shook Poirot's hand at the door, the grip was firm, not trembling. Ah, but you say, Poirot reads too much into small gestures. Bear with me. This doctor's hand no longer hides behind a stethoscope or a vial. It reaches out openly, empty but clean. Mrs. Beatrice Lang folded her crisp linen apron for the last time and placed it on the kitchen table. She had served 3 generations of Harringtons. Now she would retire to a small cottage near her sister. The thefts, small at first, I desperate later, would be repaid from her savings. Lady Amelia had not pressed charges. The household ledger entries would be quietly corrected. As she left through the servants' entrance, she paused on the threshold, looked back at the great house, and, for the first time in decades, allowed herself a small, genuine smile. No more playing invisible. No more hiding coins in apron pockets. Only an old woman carrying her own truth into the daylight. Consider the psychology. The servant needed to remain unseen, grateful, eternal. When the mask fell, resentment and fear fell with it. What remained was not villainy, but humanity, flawed, ordinary, redeemable. Colonel James Fitzroy departed last. His boots no longer echoed with military precision. They moved slowly across the gravel drive. Debts would be settled, one house sold, the investments liquidated. The bluff soldier had become a quieter man, one who no longer needed to light a cigar to steady his nerves. He paused at the gate, looked back once at the manor, then walked on. No final words to Amelia. Some roles end without encores. Poirot stood on the front steps, watching the last car disappear down the long drive. He had arranged his own departure for the evening train to London. The house behind him felt lighter, less a theatre of deception, more an ordinary home where people would now live ordinary lives, scarred but unmasked. The transformations were finished. The elegant stage had become peaceful rooms once more. Greed had performed as grief, obsession as loyalty, fear as duty. Yet when the curtain fell, each actor found something new beneath the costume. Relief, regret, redemption, or simply the chance to begin again without pretense. The theatre emptied, but the lessons lingered. Chapter 10. Poirot reviews the performance. Hercule Poirot sat in the familiar comfort of his London apartment, the evening light slanting through tall windows onto the neat arrangement of cushions and polished surfaces. A small silver pot of tisane steamed gently on the low table beside him. Its herbal scent, clean, soothing, filled the room like a quiet benediction after the storm. Outside, the city hummed with its usual life, but here, order and method reigned supreme. A single newspaper lay folded beside the cup. The headline about the Harrington case was already yesterday's news. Victor Harrington had been convicted swiftly. The others had scattered to their new, quieter lives. Poirot lifted the cup, sipped the warm tisane, and allowed his mind to review the entire performance once more. The little grey cells, ever diligent, replayed every scene. Sound effect, soft ticking of a small clock, then silence. Lady Amelia had remarried quietly 6 months later. A gentle widower from the north. No titles, no fortunes, only mutual respect. Eleanor Voss now lived in a small flat near the Seine, working as a translator. Her letters home spoke of Paris in spring, never of Harrington Manor. Dr. Thorne practiced in a modest clinic in Yorkshire, his patients loyal and few. The council had suspended him for 2 years, but he had not protested. Mrs. Beatrice Lang tended roses in a cottage garden beside her sister's sickbed. The small repayments had been made without fuss. Colonel Fitzroy sold his London club membership and moved to a cottage near the coast. He walked the cliffs daily, no longer needing a cigar to steady his hands. Poirot set the cup down with precision and leaned back, touching his magnificent moustache thoughtfully. Why do human beings perform rather than simply reveal the truth? Because truth is dangerous. Society hands us masks at birth: devoted spouse, loyal friend, dutiful child, honest servant, and we learn early that removing them invites judgment, rejection, loss. Greed wears the mask of ambition, fear wears duty, love wears indifference until it can bear the strains no longer. In the theater of crime, these masks become costumes, and the actors rehearse until the lines feel like their own voice. Yet the body never quite forgets. A dry handkerchief, a steady match, a too perfect sob. The little tells appear because the subconscious knows what the conscious mind denies. I am reminded of the ABC murders, where a man masked random killings as the work of a madman, creating an elaborate performance of pattern and misdirection. He rehearsed alibis with the care of a professional actor, yet overconfidence betrayed him. One small error in timing, one unnecessary flourish. Like Victor Harrington striking that match on the first try. Guilt had sharpened his nerves to unnatural steadiness, while genuine grief would have fumbled the flame. The psychology is always the same. Murderous intent can produce eerie calm. Authentic emotion disrupts. The hand that poisons does not shake when the moment arrives, only afterward, when the curtain begins to fall. In this case of the Poisoned Chalice, the performances were many and varied. Lady Amelia played grief to hide relief. Eleanor played loyalty to hide obsession. Victor played filial shock to hide desperation. Thorne played healer to hide extortion. Lang played servant to hide fear. Fitzroy played friend to hide ruin. Each believed their masks secure because they had worn it so long. Yet no mask endures the spotlight forever. The body betrays, the pulse quickens, the breath catches, the fingers tighten or slacken at precisely the wrong moment. Guilt always leaves fingerprints on the performance, even when no fingerprints are left on the chalice. Society demands these masks because raw truth is uncomfortable. We prefer the polished surface, the grieving widow, the dutiful son, the loyal employee, because it spares us the mess of real feeling. But when the curtain falls, what remains is often simpler, sometimes kinder. Amelia found peace in honesty. Eleanor found freedom in distance. Thorn found redemption in humility. Even Victor, in his cell, no longer needed to pretend strength he did not possess. Truth, when it finally emerges, exhausts the actor, but liberates the soul. The psychology of revelation is perhaps the most fascinating part of any drama. Why does the mask crack at last? Because performance is tiring. Lies require constant vigilance, every word weighed, every gesture measured. Truth requires only existence. When pressure mounts, when another's mask falls, and exposes the fragility of the whole production, the strain becomes unbearable. One small tell, a match struck too perfectly, and the entire theater collapses. The little grey cells delight in these moments, the instant when rehearsal ends and reality begins. Poirot sipped again, the tisane now cooler, more contemplative. And we wear masks because we fear being seen as we truly are, flawed, frightened, greedy, loving too much or too little. Yet every great drama teaches the same lesson. The mask may fool the audience for a time, but it never fools the one who watches with order and method. Truth triumphs because it needs no script, no rehearsal, no applause. Performance exhausts. Authenticity endures. He set the cup down, arranged it exactly parallel to the saucer, and allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. Until the next theater of crime, mes amis, Poirot will be watching.